Good morning. Welcome to week 3 of the quarantine. I'm broadcasting today from an underground bunker in an undisclosed location. Last time we posted, there were 7 cases of the coronavirus in our county. Now there's almost 40 a week later, so it's a little scary. I've decided I'm going to stay in the bunker until this all blows over. Now it's getting a little scary. I've run out of food. I'm run out of toilet paper. We're having to get creative, but we're getting through this, and I'm just going to hunker down until this is over. Forget it. I can't take this anymore. Who am I kidding? That's it. I'm breaking free. Soaring, flying. What was that? Oh, never mind. I can't do this. Okay, so one of the things that's happening with this coronavirus lockdown is we're all isolating ourselves. We're separating, we're keeping that 6 feet social distance guideline. We're in groups of no more than 10, but we're staying in our homes for the most part. When we go to the grocery store, we're in and out as quick as we can. We're really kind of almost isolating ourselves, and for good reason. We're trying to protect ourselves from this virus. But it kind of gets me thinking a little bit about sometimes how people view church. You see, there's kind of this idea among some believers that church should work kind of like a fortress. That it's this idea that we should insulate ourselves. We should put a wall around the church to protect the church from the outside influences of the world. It's kind of this fortress mentality. And over the centuries, some believers have done that to the point where they've gone off and built monasteries out in the middle of mountains, and they go out in the desert, and they spend their entire lives isolating themselves from other people, especially non-believers. If they interact with anybody, it's really just believers that they're going to spend any time with, because they've chosen to insulate themselves in this idea that the church needs to be separate from the world. Is that biblical? Well, people who believe that look at verses in the Bible like, come out from them and be separate, or don't be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And they use verses like that to say God calls the church to be separate and to not interact with the world, or to have as limited interaction with the world as possible. So my question, is that really biblical? Is this fortress mentality where we're going to build a wall around us as believers, and we're only going to interact with other believers, or we're going to limit our communication, our conversation, our relationships with non-believers? Is that biblical? Well, I think it's hard to say that's biblical when you look at other places like, go ye therefore into all the world and make disciples of all nations. How are you supposed to go into all the world if we're supposed to stay in a fortress kind of mentality, if we're supposed to stay? Jesus didn't say stay surrounded by your Christian bubble. He said go. Same thing in Mark. He says go and preach the gospel to all creation. Jesus, in the Sermon on the Mount, said, be salt and light. Now we know salt is only good when it leaves the salt shaker, when it preserves, when it gets out there and adds flavor, when it whets people's appetite. It's no good when it stays in the salt shaker. The same thing with light. Jesus said, be light. And a city on a hill cannot be easily hidden. And that nobody lights a light and covers it with a bushel. So he's like saying, be light. Get out there and let your light shine. Nobody takes that light and covers it up. It does no good. We're supposed to let our light shine. So how can we be salt and light and still have this kind of fortress mentality that we don't interact with the world around us? It doesn't make a lot of sense. Peter said, live such a good life among the pagans that though they accuse you of doing wrong, they see your good deeds and they will glorify God on the day he comes. So again, the more biblical approach is not to build a fortress around the church, not to isolate ourselves, not to quarantine the church and pull the church out of the world. That is not the biblical idea. The biblical idea is to engage in the world, to be salt, to be light, to represent Christ and his goodness. And now we have an opportunity to do this. People are scared. People are bunkered up, and they're hunkered down, and they're nervous, and they're watching the news, and every press conference seems to get worse and worse. And it's our opportunity to share the hope of Jesus Christ, the joy that we have in him. Don't try to quarantine the church. Get out of that fortress mentality, spiritually speaking. Let's engage with our community, whether it's through social media, through our interactions over the phone, or talking to our neighbors. Let's be salt and light.